not working like 22 hours a day. That's not your thing, or?
Oh yeah, like working, yes. Sleeping, also yes. So, so maybe not 22 hours, but no. But I think it's pretty good taking naps and stuff.
But can you just elaborate a bit more about the Scandic thing? So what year was this approximately when you actually worked in the Scandic lobby areas?
Yeah, it's beginning of 2020, and like it was very practical since you were reaching out to all these e-commerce stores, right? And you worked at Scandic, one Scandic reception area during the morning, and then in the afternoon. You can't be in the same reception area all day since then.
And you were just a couple of people then at that time, or?
Yeah.
So basically, you set up shop in Scandic reception. This is such a startup war story.
Yeah, exactly.
And so basically, you had to have your what is strategically smart to go out and meet all these e-commerce.
Yeah, exactly. So you can. It's too expensive to be in like a place central. So why not Scandic? And then. It was quite interesting since when the Depict.ai got started, it was quite timed well with COVID.
Timed well?
Or badly or well, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Bad wording. But you were in a hotel and you didn't know what was happening with this disease. So after a while, if you're in an actual hotel, that's probably one of the worst places since people are traveling.
In terms of being contagious or getting...
So regarding an office, I guess, then we moved to this industrial place in Årsta and stayed there during the summer. And
so after Scandic, you went to Årsta?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
And then you went to WeWork at some point?
Yeah,
as well?
we had an office in between. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all the time now, 2 people, 4 people, growing at the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It would be fun to be 15 people in Scandic Hotel.
Yeah, we were thinking about that actually, and it would be a horrible idea, I think. Yeah.
But did the Scandic reception personnel understand that you were setting up shop in their?
The setting up shop. No, it's more like a few buddies. I guess that's what.
But after a number of times, that they have to recognize you and say, "Okay, now they're coming again."
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like there are a certain set of people who have found this hack, I guess, to be in this reception area. So you get to know this
office
people.
Hacking. I think
is it office hack?
Yeah.
And there's some people who really like chess, for instance, and they usually go to these reception areas to play chess and so forth.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. And now you're looking for a new space, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're 14 people. Like we have stand up every day where everyone gets together. And recently it's been like what happened? We've grown our headcount pretty quickly, and our office right now is too small, and we've been like jumping around. Haven't really optimized the office too much, but I think we deserve a really good office and something where it can be kind of our own place, right?
And you still come to the office every day, even during Corona times, or what's your?
Yeah, personally, yeah. Exactly.
You said that you don't like working remote so much as personally you feel.
I'm very like I need to have my habits, and if it's not like the same habits every day, it's no. So it's good to have a place to go to. Yeah. I think.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really nice, and I hope you find an awesome place. I think you certainly deserve it. And, it would be fun to see, how that would look like as well. If it will be a lot of dashboards or plans or paintings.
You said that. You said also that this is about putting the mark, getting back. What is the culture? Finding the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is what's the Can you paint the picture of your culture? A lot of dashboards. You said. I like that.
Yeah. So right now we. Like the nice thing with the Depict.ai as a product is that many AI related products, like you need to solve a problem to start with, and maybe the way you solve the problem is not by it's not maybe the artificial intelligence that does the heavy work. Maybe it's something else, and then you can sprinkle on top salt and pepper, a little bit of AI, and then you get the checkbox, you have good marketing, and then it gets maybe 10 to 20% better with AI.
That's a good topic to speak more about later.
But
all the supporting systems compared to AI.
Yeah, but the point was that you have a system that actually
we have a specific problem that you need to solve with AI or machine learning. So it's like the core of our product is actually applying these cool algorithms and so forth, which and it's like very measurable. So you can have like fast feedback loops and like really focus on this thing, which makes many other stuff in the culture has extrapolated from that.
And then the bottom line becomes that even if we have super smart algorithms, still it needs to get in front of the humans in order for them to draw conclusions and all that. So the visualization here, or to have your dashboards and actually have a very nice way.
Yeah.
How do I touch an algorithm? How do I feel an algorithm?
Yeah.
You come back to the visualization to some degree, I guess.
Yeah, like it's with the dashboards we have, it's maybe more like how do you measure the performance? We don't use too many dashboards in that sense to understand the thinking behind the algorithm, or it's to like measure the end performance.
Yeah. Which is ultimately then we have a recommender system, but in the end we want to understand how it did. And this is what you want to visualize.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are other things in a company you can also measure.
Well, it's awesome to have you here, Oliver Edholm, and I really like tech people like yourself. That I think you started programming very, very early, right?
Exactly.
So did I, and I'm very much a tech geek, and I think you are as well. And I think it's a positive thing to say. I'm not sure if you agree, but I do certainly think so. So I think we will have an interesting discussion, and I'd love to hear more about who you are and about the company you have founded, Depict, etc. But if we start about you, how would you describe who is Oliver Edholm?
Yeah, I would describe myself as someone who very much likes building things, and building things that at the end has good impact on the world, I would say. So, and I think I haven't lived for that long, but if I look back at like all the things I've done, it's always like I want to build something, and how do I achieve building this? And in the beginning when I started programming, it was like I played Minecraft. And
that was the first thing you programmed?
The first thing I programmed, I guess, was this like Lego robot thing. It's quite classic. Lego Mindstorms is called.
Cool.
But it's more like drag and drop, right? Those kinds of things. But I would say the real programming was played Minecraft, and then you get bored of the game, and then to make it more fun, you can actually go into the source code of the game, and you start with very small things, and then you can iterate and make more and more advanced.
But this is super cool because it's also Lego. Would you say that is a quite nice first introduction for kids or people who are sort of curious but not really there yet? Drag and drop is a way to understand what programming does.
I guess it started like I like building things, and you can build stuff with the Lego, and then there's this robot you can build with Lego. So you have all your Lego parts, and then you have your sensors that you attach to it, and you attach it to a computer, and then you can have drag and drop stuff there. I guess that's a good introduction.
Because it's the whole chain, right? As an ecosystem, with the sensor, with the code, with that robot.
Yeah, I think the best way, if you want, I guess if someone has like a kid and you want them to program, but you want
this is why I'm asking, by the way.
You want to do it in a sneaky way, right?
Yes.
It's like coming from their end. It's not that you force them to start programming. I guess you should find something they're passionate about, and then how can you...
Then I need to share a private. So my middle, my child, I have 3 kids. Felix is the middle guy, and he is passionate about Minecraft and Lego.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Good start.
Yeah, so now I need to find a sneaky way. So keep going here.
Yeah,
we have Lego Mindstorm. How do I get him into programming? You know, he doesn't know. He's still doing Minecraft on the console. What do I need to do to get him to? How do I need to sneak him into programming?
I think when I started, it was more that it was kind of hacky, and how you started programming in that game. But I think the game as a whole have realized that this is a great way to get started. So I think they've made some programs or applications to actually steer people into programming within Minecraft.
But you're on the PC side of
Minecraft.
Minecraft.
PC for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's this thing called Redstone in the game, where it's like you can actually, if you go to YouTube, you can see like people who built like an actual computer in this Redstone thingy in the game Minecraft. And
crazy.
So you build a computer inside the game itself?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's maybe one way to start, like showing some cool YouTube videos. And
so Redstone, I need to remember about Redstone. I'm gonna do all this with Felix.
Yeah, and then then the real thing is like doing these modifications, right? And then that was hooked me. And then you program that in Java. And when I knew how to program in Java to some extent then, and then apparently you can make these Android apps if you knew Java. And I made some like Android apps related to problems I had, or I go to school or the first app I made was like making random goose sounds, which was totally random.
Goose sounds?
Yeah, so it was called Goosepot, which is super random. But you like double tap on the phone and you get a random goose, image of a goose, and then a random goose sound. And then just to make it fun, I made so you had to pay for it, right? So it cost 7 crowns or something. And then people started paying for this goose sound thing. And then like, if I can do this, then
Speaking about making impact on our society, right?
Yeah.
So
The Goose Sound app, 7 kronor. I love it.
That's awesome.
But then it's like you have a need, and then what's the next thing? Well, I need to practice my glossaries. That's one of the problems if you're young. And then you'd make an app for that. And then
you made an app to improve schoolwork.
Yeah, and then like
that's smart.
It became quite popular within the Android ecosystem. And then I realized, well, if you write code once, and then other people start using it, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
How old were you when you basically did your first apps, like the glossary app?
Yeah, 12 years old. Yeah.
12 years old?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then from that, sorry.
No, continue, please.
Yeah, and then from that, it made some apps, and I think what I did is you had these essays in school where like this was in middle school, so it wasn't super advanced, but to make an essay at that level, it's a lot of like reading stuff on the internet and then writing it in your own words, which is relatively simple. So I got interested in like, okay, if I connect, so start with maybe connecting to the Bing search API. Right. So you want to write about cells within biology, right? Yeah. And then you collect all of these links, and then you can scrape these sites and get the text, and then you want to split it into paragraphs, and then there's like, okay, what kind of subtopics are there within cells if you want to write about cells? And then there's like ribosomes and all of these things. And I made this very hacky script where it basically started writing
your essay for you.
Yeah, exactly. And,
I love this.
And then at the end there's something
this
called...
This is so cool.
Yeah, and cheating using AI.
So, awesome. So the point is this: is it cheating when you're writing a script and using an
automating?
I made the AI. I'm the father of the AI. And the AI, which is mine, wrote the essay. How is this cheating? I don't think it's cheating.
It's meta.
It's meta.
Meta learning or something.
Yeah. So for me, this is meta learning but the point is, you probably learn more than any other kid simply to structure the data.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then there's thing at the end, there's something called article spinning, which is like if you take something from the internet and you write about it, there's ways to trace that back to the source. Right. So if you like copy pasted something about ribosomes from Wikipedia, then you can trace it back through the software. But if you do apply article spinning, you like rewrite the textual style. And there were some, that was before the very fancy natural language processing NLP models that we have today. But in hindsight, or if these cool technologies that are out there today existed, then this would be very powerful.
So you have cracked the code here. This is meta learning, and then you've done it with article spinning, and now your sped spins. What if I had the NLP models back then?
Yeah. What?
Going from office hacking to essay hacking. And,
I love it. Then the next hack was I played FIFA. The game, football game.
Yeah, the football game.
Yeah, and you can, there's something called FIFA Ultimate Team, where if like you can play against other people online and stuff like that, and you can like trade football cards. So I guess when you were younger, you traded physical cards. Yeah, sorry.
My Tio. So it's my youngest. He's crazy about this.
Yeah,
that's all he does.
And the nice thing is they have a mobile app for this, and if you intercept the requests, you can like reverse engineer, so you can do trading from your computer, right? And then you can.
So what, you hack the ultimate?
Yeah. So then you can get FIFA coins, right? So you can buy the best football cards. So like you traded. You had some good techniques to trade football cards.
So what does it take to hack FIFA? Like how do you intercept the feed? Maybe that's not what we should talk about, or is that okay?
I'm not sure if people are happy if I talk too much about that.
We leave it. Leave it.
Yeah, not the most ethical topic, but I also have a background in hacking, so it's interesting. But you have a lot of cool stuff. So going from office to essay to FIFA hacking. What's your next hack?
My next hack? Maybe hack is the wrong word, I guess.
If not in the sense of we say about hack a process or hack or really do something different. So not hacking in the negative way, but
hacking can be positive for sure.
For me, it's we use that a hackathon, right? It's like, how do I hack this process? We have always done it like that. Can we really think it differently?
Yeah. So I have something in mind, which is can you? So at Depict.ai, we create like product recommendations for e-commerce sites. So if you go to an e-commerce product page, you have the main product, and then beneath there's this related product section. And what Depict.ai focuses on is creating the algorithms that decides which products you see there. And we are talking to a lot of very like amazing brands that are good at selling amazing products, but they haven't maybe figured out the e-commerce aspect.
Before we go too much into Depict, I think that's a separate topic in itself. And I think we should certainly go there very soon. But before we do that, I mean, you have an interesting background as well. And let's see, what were the last thing we said? You moved into working with FIFA, and you tried to do some apps and hacking for that. And what were the next steps? What led up actually to you starting Depict.ai before actually doing that?
So starting with the hack as a way to get into programming, and then moving closer and closer, I guess, into machine learning and all this.
Yeah, so I guess those were some examples of you have a very concrete problem, and to solve this problem, you happen to need to know machine learning stuff, basically. After a while, like you have this problem, and then to solve this problem, you need to learn these machine learning methods. In the beginning, maybe you just learn the interface to the machine learning model. Maybe it's more of a black box, but then you realize, I need to learn the math.
So how did you get into machine learning, by the way? Was it through school, through some course, or was it just you actually doing self-studies, or how did
self-studies completely? You have a problem, and to solve the problem, there are a lot of online resources, like massive open online courses and all of those things you can take.
That's how you did it?
Yeah, exactly. So
do you remember your first machine learning problem that you wanted to solve?
Yeah, the first machine learning problem, there was this website called Prata med datorn, talk with the computer. And this was before chatbots were cool, I think.
Or still not cool. But
yeah, okay. But it was, I thought it was really interesting, since you could say you could say stuff and it answered, but it was not a real person. And the way they constructed that chatbot, I think, is by steering the conversation. So it was very rule-based, and you steer the conversation into a topic where you have many, many rules. So maybe it knows a lot about pizza, and then you steer this conversation to pizza. And in the chatbot. So I wanted to create my own chatbot for that, and didn't know anything about machine learning or anything. And I forced the user to write in the right grammar and everything, so it was a little bit easier. So then you had simple rules to start with, like what if they wrote a question marks? What are the what things can you really? What general things can you say? So it sounds
cool,
that it makes sense. Yeah. And then you experiment on your friends, and then eventually you get something.
So what was the game or the problem to try to get a conversation going?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the problem.
Yeah,
how can I get fluent conversation? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but to the listener or to the talker, actually it maneuvers.
Yeah,
so that was the problem you were trying to...
Can you fool your friends that this is an actual person, I guess?
That was a Turing test already.
Yeah.
The Turing test, exactly.
And what year was this approximately?
Oh, I don't remember. I was 13, I think, when I did that. And
so 2015 or something?
Or? Probably earlier or later, yeah.
Because, chatbots has been around for extremely long time. It's one of the most interesting classical AI problems of all. And I think that the most famous and earliest one was from 1964 called ELIZA. And it was this kind of chatbot, if you call it that, where you could speak about psychological problems. And it simply replied back by just turning your latest answer to a question.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? What's that type of questioning called?
Rogerian
questioning technique.
Yeah. But it really worked surprisingly well. But it was very much rule-based and still is, right? And so was yours, I guess, at that time. And it's a bit sad that even the chatbots of today is actually very much rule-based.
Yeah, but the way I got into machine learning there, I guess, was people started chatting with it, and it was very cumbersome increasing the vocabulary of it by myself manually. So could I reverse and could I automatically interpret the chats I had with other people to automatically increase the vocabulary? And that's
so you automate part of the process of actually building and programming the machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's a classical and best definition of machine learning that we have. When you automate the part of the process of building some kind of intelligent system. Cool. So chatbots was something, and can you just speak a bit shortly about what led up to before you actually started with Depict?
Yeah. So when I was finishing middle school, I got in contact with Klarna, and managed to get like a summer job there, and it worked. I did well, since I had been doing like open source projects and so forth by myself during middle school, and even though people didn't know about my age, people were using, and it was
your code. So people are using your code just because it was good code, and then
it was tools, machine learning related, and through that. So we found this village in Kalmar called Torsås, and if you go...
I am from Kalmar, by the way, if you don't know it, so I know Torsås and Kalmar very well.
Yeah, and if you go to high school there in Torsås, then...
Are you from Kalmar, by the way? Or?
No, Stockholm,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But did you go there for...
Yeah, so I went to that high school,
Okay.
and
this is as a focus, this high school, I guess.
so it's the only before COVID, the only high school where you're allowed to do it remotely, basically. And I was already in the mindset that maybe school isn't the best path, like the traditional school.
That's another topic I have on the list, so I would love to talk more about that shortly.
Yeah.
You're brilliant, but the normal school is not the real path for everyone.
Yeah, and it's
not for you, at least.
Yeah, and that probably has to do with more of my personality than maybe that. I think many people who, probably some people should go to school.
No, but I think this is this is a topic in itself, interesting to talk about how the education system looks like and how we're supposed to be in a certain way, and clearly humans are not. We are all quite different, and then we have a system that works well for some people or kids because that's their profile, and clearly it is not working so well for another personality.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's very huge that you figure that out and follow your path.
So in Klarna, you did some summer job. Can you just speak a bit more? What do you actually do there in Klarna?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much I can say, but it's involved the web automation actually.
Nice.
So how can you like apply machine learning to automate stuff on the web, which was
and do information extraction in some way from the web.
And like e-commerce pages and stuff. So and then I continued that. So I worked at Klarna during the day. Then during the afternoon, I went to this online high school, and I did that for roughly a year. And then I got very interested in like how can you apply machine learning on web pages to make them more accessible for blind and vision impaired, which is like maybe a bit random topic, but
it seems like a pet project or passion project for you.
Yeah, it was a passion project in the beginning, but then it became a huge project for me. I still think there's like potential there. So if you're blind or vision impaired and you navigate a website, what you basically have to do is you have to read the HTML code behind the website from top to bottom. That's what you do when you navigate a website as a blind and vision impaired person.
Like with voice?
Yeah, with voice. And that creates many problems. So what if you jump into an image and the programmer behind that website hasn't provided a description for it? Then it's like an image, but I don't know what it is. Or what if you have an icon and it's like a search icon, but there's no description? What happens then? Or what if the HTML code is structured in a way that like the footer actually starts at the top of the code? Or so it's like you don't know which order is the right order, and huge
so you
amounts
don't
of
understand
problems.
the layout by simply looking at the HTML.
And you really see, I mean, like this is a really fundamental problem, or in our world today, we're kind of all online, but the online is not really inclusive if you're vision impaired.
Yeah. And I think it becomes worse actually, since with the web technologies are like advancing, so they become more like dynamic. There's single page application frameworks where it's actually these screen readers, they're called, that interpret websites. They don't catch up basically. And the way these screen readers are funded for is by there's a company. Most people are using a software called JAWS, and it's like one company that has monopoly on everything, and then they force the government to subsidize the screen reader for the blind and vision impaired, and it costs huge amounts of money. And
it's up for disruption.
Yeah, it's up for disruption. So it's a hard space.
But how did you how did you find yourself thinking about this problem? Or did you have a connection to it in any way, this problem? How do you come?
So I wasn't like, I didn't know anyone specifically like related to it, but when I guess I'm wandering around a lot, and I guess by wandering around I came to that very specific problem, and when you start thinking about it, it's very clear that this isn't...
So what's your solution? What was your best way of simply making the web more accessible for vision impaired?
Yeah, so maybe I didn't implement the whole solution, but I think the solution to it is, instead of relying on just... So there's the screen reader softwares that's out there today, they rely a lot on looking at the HTML code behind a site. You need to...
And not using JavaScript, by the way, right? Or...
Yeah, it becomes very tricky. Like what if you click on a button and then the web totally re-renders and everything? How do you communicate that to blind and vision impaired? Right. Becomes pretty hard. So I think you should render the page, and then you should apply computer vision, like machine learning algorithms on the web page.
And then describe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that your approach, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
you try to describe from an image point of view what the page looked like.
Yeah, since there's a lot of software that they're like super optimized to understand HTML code. Like there are all of these solutions, but where you hit the boundary of understanding the web page even further is when there are these visual aspects. And if like there are self-driving cars somewhat, and they operate in very, very complex environments, I would argue that a website is actually
simpler
in some senses. Yeah. So,
But actually, you could also argue, I think, the other way, which is to say that the Elon Musk way of doing self-driving cars is by completely relying on computer vision, not doing other sensors like LiDAR, etc., but only relying on vision. And I think, potentially what you're saying is you're doing a bit the same. Yeah. Or we're thinking a bit the same,
Yeah, I would say so. But like you don't need LiDAR to web navigate the web page.
But the part of the problem is, first of all, to get extremely good computer vision, and then is to translate that into voice. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why I got interested in I read your Google Scholar articles. Anders, you did research in how you extract things from the web very, very early on. Since I think if you solve the comprehending a website in a good way, then you basically solve it also for computers to a further extent. Right. So there's robotic process automation, like RPA.
He has a thing with these acronyms, chatbots, RPAs. He thinks it's fake.
It's on my bottom list,
but you don't pay attention to this old man.
Yeah, but I think you can.
Can you frame it like this? I mean, the first step in being able to, for example, make web pages understand for vision impaired is for the machine to actually understand the meaning, the semantics of it, and then the machine can explain it to the vision impaired in a proper way. But the first step is really to make the machine understand a bit, more about the semantics.
So if you solve that first part, you can take that into many use cases, of course.
Yeah. So if you if you want to do a reinforcement learning thing, right? So if you want to train a reinforcement learning agent to play some game, right? If there are all of these levers it can have. Imagine you give a robot an Atari-like game and there are 1,000 buttons and it needs to learn the game from scratch. If there are 1,000 buttons, then it's pretty hard to learn anything from scratch with any supervision, right? Since there's so many possibilities and what does this button do, what does this button do? But if you can decrease the amount of buttons, so it becomes less complex to maybe have 3 buttons, then it's much easier, less dimensions for the robot to
and learn. If you were to go a bit more technical about this, so you try to take a more vision approach, you try to understand the meaning of web pages. What type of models were you using, if you can share it?
What type of models? So I think there are a bunch of sub-problems. So there's something called WCAG, W-C-A-G, which is web standards on if so the ground, one of the problems with web pages is if programmers, web developers actually follow these web standards, then blind and vision impaired will have a relatively easy time navigating a web page.
But don't you think that is improving, though, that the latest HTML5 standards, etc., is a bit improved on the previous ones? Or
so the standards maybe are better, but the hard part is actually
the dynamics.
Like there's a lot of people need to actually follow those standards. That's a big problem, and I don't think people will follow those standards if it's not easier to follow them. So there are some problems, like you need to be able to tab through a web page in the correct order. So if you click on tab, I shouldn't the thing that the screen reader describes should be the first thing on the page. It shouldn't be in the middle of the page and you get totally disoriented. So like, that's a bad explanation. But
no, but it's what you said before. The footer can be in the order of the HTML code in the top, but the vision or the layout when you see it is different. So then it should understand the proper visual order of it.
So that's like a sub problem I worked on quite a lot. And you can just go to these accessibility standards and there are automated checks to check how accessible a website is. Can you what are the biggest problems on the web as a whole that people don't follow? Well, tabbing is one of them. Another problem which is quite obvious, which is you have an image and it doesn't have this alt attribute that describes what's in the image. Well, then you can do what's the best possible image captioning for that. There's a sub problem within.
Did you actually do that yourself as well with trying to generate captions for images?
Yeah, but that's more then you use APIs for that, since those are the best. And then there's a sub problem which is more specifically the icons. So sometimes you maybe have a button and it says search on the button, but sometimes you have a button, it's an actual image of a search icon. And usually these aren't labeled as actual search icons. So if a blind or vision impaired person goes to that search button, they don't know what that is. So then that's a pretty simple computer vision task to just, but then there are so many possible icons out there on the web that you need to be able to classify. So what you need to do then is you need to scrape huge amounts of websites.
So you didn't do the API approach here?
No. Yeah, so you scrape a huge amounts of websites. And so can you automate a way to collect a huge data set? So you scrape a large amount of websites, and then there are some ways to automatically detect if something is an icon or if it's an actual real natural image. You can count the amount of distinctive colors in the image and stuff like that. So you can classify, is this an icon or is this a natural image? Is this an icon? Is this a natural image? And since the web is so large, you can find these, you can create this data set where maybe I missed a bunch of icons, but at least this data set includes actual icons. And then you can do even more filtering after that, which is, so some websites have already labeled I have a search icon here. And the programmer, they were very kind and they labeled it as a search icon. If they didn't label it, or if you do some heuristics on the text and it's like a poorly formatted text, then you scrap that from the data set, and then you can just do some nearest neighbor search thing.
Yeah. So sorry for taking so much time on this, because I think it's such an interesting topic, but I think we need to move into Depict.ai, etc.
Yeah,
but before we do that,
but I just want to reflect that when you start opening up a problem, it's a problem in the problem in the problem in the problem, and what you're describing, Oliver, is also like this. To go to the root of the problem and to really understand it, you need to you need to go all the way, and very cool.
Can you just try to close up perhaps this interesting project that you had with trying to make web pages more accessible for vision impaired? So you built some kind of project or solution for it, and can you just speak a bit about what was the end result? Where is it today? And what's the current status?
Yeah, so the end result, I created a bunch of these like extensions to screen readers. I call it screenreader.ai. Oh. And now if you go there, I don't think there's anything. But people were using it, and they were very active users. And I tried to find ways to maybe make that a larger project, but that was hard.
So you worked yourself? It wasn't a multi-people project?
It was by myself. It ended up that people, it impacted a lot by the vision impaired within these sub-problems. It didn't go for the whole vision, right? Since I think if you solve the whole vision
in a double sense, unintended.
Exactly.
But it's something that you're still a little bit. It's a sleeper. It's a sleeper. Oh. It's a sleeper that you might, when you crack it, when you have a next brilliant idea on it, you will push it a little bit further.
Yeah, I think if you wait a little bit, wait for like technology to mature, someone will do something there, and it will be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and it could be you. Could it be you? Like when you figure it out,
or have you? I will do Depict.ai. It's even cooler.
It's even cooler. I like it.
Or I think there are many connections to that. But
maybe it is.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect segue then, moving more into the Depict. And can you just start speaking a bit more about how did you come up with that idea?
Yeah. So. So the way I got to that idea is I was doing consulting for various e-commerce sites, and I was also like a personal e-commerce buyer myself. And if you go to many like e-commerce stores in Sweden, for example, and you maybe want to buy a keyboard or whatever, I'm very like detailed oriented when I buy these keyboards and whatever I buy, and you look at the recommendations to them, it blows you away since they were like so bad. So if you go to many e-commerce sites today, you maybe have a keyboard and then you get recommended like a dishwashing machine. That can happen, or you get recommended. I'm like there are all of these very bad examples you can usually find out there if you browse around, where just by looking at recommendations,
I'm eager to ask about the names of the e-commerce sites, but we shouldn't name bad examples, I don't think. But I can certainly agree with you that the level of performance when it comes to recommender systems
if we flip
for e-commerce sites in Sweden is really
which sites do you think are the best in the world to nail down the recommendation that is, this is beautiful, the way I go and search for this, and they they know my brain. Who do you respect?
So the sites that use Depict.ai to start with, but it's also like it depends on what the circumstances are. Some e-commerce sites they operate on a marketplace, and the data quality that they get varies a lot, and that's a huge problem. And there are many more like variables you need to take into account. But I think like Zalando, Wayfair, those are some that
they come away. They're on the forefront.
Yeah, or somewhat in the forefront.
Yeah,
I think Alibaba has some really cool stuff also.
But you skipped the perhaps most famous one.
So then there's Amazon, and I don't like Amazon, but they were very early with recommendation engines, right?
They got all the hype for it.
I mean, they invented, the classical collaborative filtering techniques. I mean, in that sense, they're pioneers in the field.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And Amazon, So I think they actually have sometimes quite bad recommendations, but that's actually because they operate a marketplace, and that's very hard, since like the data quality can vary quite a lot. And then they also have, Amazon, they want to make it harder for the smaller guys, right? So if they usually create their own private label brands, for instance, and
for some reason, then the recommendation works better.
Yeah, and then they will push products that they have better margins on themselves, even though other products could be more relevant.
Make people aware that we think they do that.
Yeah.
I had to share an anecdote. I went to this Rexus conference, I think back in 2015 or something, and I remember a PhD student went up and spoke about this kind of dynamic pricing model that he invented, and said, we can adapt the price depending on the user. And some senior data scientist from Amazon stood up and said, "This is horrible. We will never use this in Amazon because we care about the user. We care about, we should have non-discriminatory kind of prices. And this was, because we care so much about our users, we would never do this." And it is a bit conflicting, perhaps, with what some other people think. But I think still we should be fair, to say that Amazon, of course, do care about the user, but they also have. I think I've been so frank, what my feelings about Amazon is previously on this podcast. So I don't think I need to say it again, from a lot of other reasons, like open source kind of contribution wise, and how they completely commercialize and destroy open source world in different ways. But still, I think we need to give them credit when credit is due in some way. Yeah. Okay, so I just had to add that point to it.
Yeah, but it's a little bit interesting. Is it more like you don't like Amazon from a personal reason, or from, you don't think it's just a little bit like war? Because we all have opinions, and this is an after work, so we can have opinions. Yeah. So I'm just curious, because they are not on the top of your list. Is it more about who they are and their what they stand for, or is it more about you don't think they're that good?
They know better, of course, internally. They know what they optimize for, and they know how well they achieve that objective. But I've been very heavily using their website, trying it out. If you go to the Swedish one, I expected it to be a little bit better, at least.
Yeah, me as well.
But if you go to maybe the US one, and you go into popular segments that I've frequently interacted with, it's probably pretty good.
So before we go too much into that, you said something about the difference between operating perhaps a retailer versus a marketplace, and they very much, of course, then operate the marketplace where they have many different retailers. Can you just unpack that a bit more? What do you think the differences are in terms of, how do you build the best recommender systems when you are Amazon versus you are a Depict customer?
Yeah. So if you operate a marketplace, and usually, say in Sweden, there's CDON, there's Fyndiq, for instance, that are marketplaces, and what they connect with a bunch of other retailers and e-commerce stores. And what might happen, for instance, is maybe they get multiple companies that want to sell
same thing.
A Nike shoe, for instance, or a shoe on the site. And maybe one e-commerce site, they wrote the title in this way, they took the images in this way, they wrote the description in this way, and stuff like that. And another e-commerce site wrote it in a completely other way. So even though it's the same shoe, the metadata around it is completely different. And maybe there's not a unique identifier that can join the two, so you can see that it's the same shoe. So as a marketplace, you first need to know, okay, what we need to normalize all the products, do product normalization. So since it's probably pretty bad to recommend the exact same shoe, but one store is selling it for double the price, I don't want to recommend that one, for instance. There's some of these companies that connect they just provide a lower quality of service. So maybe they have bad shipping, they have bad customer support, those kinds of things, and that's something you need to take into account into the marketplace recommendation engine. Maybe one of the providers, they have their warehouse closer to where you live, and they can like ship it faster to you. But I think the biggest problem is that there's usually no single way to categorize the products, the metadata, to write the descriptions.
So the recommendation metadata will make it, the recommendation is hard to be as accurate or crisp.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, and it's so easy to jump into recommender system problems directly, but let's try to just speak a bit more about the launch of Depict.ai and what happened there. So you did work as a consultant for a number of e-commerce sites, and you want to find keywords, and you want to have your clear ideas about this is the type I want. So how did that continue into actually you starting a new company?
So and then I think one very big thing connected to that also is if you look at all of these research papers from maybe YouTube, Alibaba, and so forth, they can create these really cool recommendation engines that use all of these bells and whistles, and they work amazing. But if you try to maybe recreate one of those recommendation engines and put it into a Scandinavian retailer, then it's like you maybe have this amazing Ferrari, but you don't have any fuel, right? You don't have
data is missing.
Exactly. And that is like a meta problem in many places. So maybe Amazon, they have the infrastructure and the engineers and the data to solve a bunch of problems with machine learning, whilst the little guys, they basically don't have this scale to get sufficient amount of data to utilize these deep learning models and so forth. And that kind of meta problem is something can Depict.ai be a force where maybe we can be the ones that know how to create, there's one thing to create maybe a Formula 1 car, and that's maybe not fuel efficient, but you can also create a normal car that can still drive and drive very fast. Can we create those cars for the normal e-commerce site, basically, that takes the data quantities that they have and utilizes it in the best possible way? And there's not that much research in those areas, since the companies that have sufficient amount of scale to do all of this research are the companies that have a lot of resources, a lot of data, and so forth.
It's very similar to what we speak about so often, which is called the AI divide, which is, we have the big tech companies like Amazon or Google or Microsoft and whatnot, and they have the data, they have the infrastructure, they have the research groups. But if you try to apply their solution to normal size companies or to the rest of the tech giants, are very few number of companies that can do this, and that type of solution usually doesn't work for normal companies. And is it correct to say that Depict.ai would be trying to find a solution that works for normal companies?
Exactly. Yeah. And especially within e-commerce, I think if you look at machine learning, where is it applied, and it actually gives pretty good business impact. E-commerce and retail is one of the places. Like you mentioned, dynamic pricing, when should you, which image should I show, search, listing. There's a bunch of machine learning problems where if you solve them in a good way, that has a lot of bottom line impact. So I think that's an industry that's very good to start with to
But before the spin on this, Oliver, I think it's quite profound what you're telling now, because it's also a little bit like with the AI divide. We talk about these are the best companies, and also these are the guys spitting out the papers and the papers and the papers, and we get blinded and so impressed with them. And you can run and chase the next better number on what they are doing. And here we have a guy who, when did you start thinking about his problem?
When did I start?
So
I started it when I was 17. Yeah.
So here we have a guy who's 17 years old, who, in my opinion, is smarter than the whole academic world, because he's basically trying to figure out another problem, not going after the numbers of the paper that Google has done, but you realize that, well, they are geared towards the problem in this way because that will help them. But the way they have framed the problem will not help the normal e-commerce guy. So how would I frame the problem? And then you say, it's not so much research on this. Hello, Sweden. Hello, academics. Can we please start thinking like Oliver a little bit more? So it's profound, like what you did and how you thought about the problem. I think that's what we go back to and say, the big giants say, I'm not scared of the other big giants. I'm scared about the smart startups that flips the problem on us. And this is a really concrete example of this that you can take into how do we improve outcome of the academic world. This example, right? And how to think when you want to start a company. So fantastic storytelling.
But just for people listening into this and they are impressed with your journey and they want to do something similar. So they have perhaps a good idea like you had. They need to realize it somehow.
Yes.
How did you make that happen?
So I think you should start with a very concrete problem. So it's something, especially if you're more tech oriented, it's more like, I have this cool technology. I have this hammer. What can I like use with this hammer? That's a wrong approach usually. It's
so
more
not start with the technology.
Start with a specific problem. And it should be a hair-burning problem. So it should not be like, it's nice to have. It should be like huge problem. And it doesn't have to be a problem. It doesn't have to be a huge market, actually, I would say. It can be a very small market to start with, but find like, instead of finding 1,000 people who kind of like you, find 10 people who love you, and then specify that problem, find that problem, and ensure that it's connected to a vision that you can really work for a very long time and get people to work for that vision, and then just make those 10 users love you even more, and then now they love you so much that they will tell their friends, right? Since the world is so large now that even if you start with a very, very small market, it's much better to have a very small defined problem.
I think that's more or less the definition of innovation.
I'm speechless, Oliver. So what you said now is so good. It's so good, Oliver.
I try to make Spotify innovated by introducing dansband as a type of genre in music. I failed miserably at that, but at least I got the genre into Spotify, which I'm proud of. But I think otherwise, the whole idea that innovation doesn't happen for the mass market. Innovation happen for the small, more dedicated set of people that will later build up to be the new type of mass market potential. But it doesn't start with the mass market.
I think this is one part of it. I think the other part of it is that go for the very specific burning problem and care about finding the burning problem. I mean, like the management consultant would go the other way and say, where is the value pool? Where can I find 10,000 people? And like, that's just the wrong idea. Find the burning problem. And if that burning problem is the right one, that you have, what you said, a sustainable vision that you can grow around, then you are flipping it. And all of a sudden you create a new industry or a new market. So it's the burning problem idea, I think, is the number one. And then you don't care if it's many or small. I love it.
Yeah, and the world is so large that there's always larger market usually.
Yes.
Yeah.
But still, if you were to be more practical, you had the idea, you had a potential good set of 10 people that loved the whole idea, but you need to realize it somehow. What do you do?
What do you do? So Depict.ai, we got through this famous startup program called Combinator. So
did you apply for that, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I applied for it and we got in. But what I'm maybe reiterating a lot what they are saying, but the question was, how do you go about solving that? So as a tech person, the bias is to let's write some code now and let's go into the cellar or the Scandic hotel and just write code all day. What you should actually do is you should probably just find this user first and talk to them a lot, and then time box yourself. So you should definitely not spend more than a month creating a solution for them. Maybe 1 week, and then see how well that works, and then you show it to this user that have like, hey, okay, you have this specific problem. We made this solution in a week that it's really bad, but can you give feedback? Since if I work on this problem for a year, maybe there are all these assumptions that you're usually wrong about. So when you show it to the user, it actually doesn't. They don't care about 95% of the features. It's actually
so quickly move to the market, test on users, and iterate on the feedback you receive from the users, right? Like, but if I were to challenge that, then, because I think, of course, I agree, we should go quickly to the market. But still, if I just try to be the devil's advocate here, then you have this famous Ford quote saying, "If you just do incremental improvements all the time, we would never have invented the car. We would just have a faster horse." Yeah. What's your response to that? If you have you heard about the quote?
Yeah, I've heard about that quote. So that's a good point. I think, like, usually if you really focus on a specific problem, that's usually how you can solve it. There's of course, I'm trying to think about innovations like the World Wide Web. How was that started? So that was started by Tim Berners-Lee wanted to do something to share stuff with other researchers. CERN, So that was like a huge innovation. Maybe that was the car instead of the horse. And what he did,
I think you already answered the question actually. So I think what you said in the beginning, that the innovation doesn't happen in the mass market. It does happen with a small set of people that see this is something that is a big problem, and if we simply solve this, it can be a really big thing. So I think that's the answer to the Ford quote.
But actually, it's like understanding how the Ford quote fits together with what you said, because it's a little bit like, first you found the fundamental problem and you start not with the mass market, you start here, but then you don't go in with the 10 and don't talk to the 10 people for 1 year. So when you find your problem, that's when you start iterating and evolve the vision. So I think that's how then you're not iterating.
We can just continue our quote extremist here and say basically the only way, when you do this type of innovation, what you want to think is about, for the horse and car kind of problem, it's a question of, I want to get from point A to B. I want to be transported to some position. And then you have to really think, is really a horse the best way to do it? And then you have to go down to the first principles to think, how can I really make this happen? And I think that's what you did in some way as well, saying, we see the current, recommender system is not working well, and we need to really think, what is really the problem we're trying to solve, and think, what are the fundamental building blocks that we have to make this work better, and then rethink, stop doing what other people are doing, we do it in a different way. And I think that's the whole idea of
because now we almost get soon into the IP, because you have solved stuff in a different way.
I've solved stuff. IP.
I think so. Like your intellectual property somewhere is that you're flipping the problem and you're thinking differently on how to build the data for the recommender system.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're taking away as one engineering or data problem and fixing it in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you applied for Y Combinator and you got approved and you got some initial funding, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was it just you at that point, or was it also Anton and others? Or
so Anton just joined when we came in, and there's another person as well, and the Y Combinator, they are this startup accelerator that was started by a person called Paul Graham. They were one of the first real startup incubators or accelerators, and there are companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, many huge startups
out of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Where is this originating? Is it American or English?
Yeah, it's America.
It's American,
in San
right?
Francisco. Yeah.
Nice place.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, it's
when
a nice place.
No. But when you applied to go here to this particular incubator, how did you? What did you use? Apply without any connections, or did you get recommended to apply because it's huge?
Yeah, it's huge. They have
Scouts.
No, you apply through the web form, and I didn't do much more than that. And
So you followed the web form, and you did a good.
They have pretty good processes, and then it's funny since they have this. There's like I think the last batch there were like 16,000 companies applying or something, and a few percentage of them get accepted into interviews, and these interviews are famous since they're quite harsh or like very direct.
Full on, yeah.
Yeah, full on. So you have like 3 different partners, and it's maybe one guy, he like invented Gmail at Google and stuff like that. And then they try to poke holes in 10 minutes. You only have 10 minutes, and they try to poke holes into your idea.
What an
if other people that listen to this want to learn how to get through that, what type of questions? Can you give some examples or just some advice, how to pass through that type of interview?
So like some examples of questions are like, how do you know users want this? What's your growth? Well, it's quite common, but it's very specific since they try to find the questions that will throw you off, I guess.
Right.
So,
But even start further. I mean, like, how the hell do you stand out in a web application? Even there, like, do you go down, this is the elevator pitch for real, right?
If you want to get into Y Combinator, start with having a very concrete problem, that's a hair-burning problem, and create a solution where you prove some traction that you're solving this problem.
But do you remember some of the text, how you framed your problem when you sent in the application?
I think I framed it kind of like this. I haven't gone that much into depth, more into specifics of a problem, which I can do later. But existing e-commerce sites, so Amazon, they can create amazing product recommendations since they have huge amounts of data. If you're not Amazon, you maybe have 100 times or 1,000 times less data, then you can't use the same algorithms. And we create algorithms that do that.
Works.
Yeah.
And then boom, we create algorithms that work with a few data.
Yeah.
That's powerful. But we always talk about this, and we joke about this when we try to start new businesses, or I'm a startup and Anders is on my back. Can you nail down your problem? And like sometimes you're working in things that are quite complex, even if it's change management and all that. But actually, even if you can't hide behind that, I should be able to be so succinct like you were right now. And I it's hard.
Yeah, and like what Y Combinator teach me and teaches many other companies is like when I came in, I was even more, tech focused, I guess.
Techy?
Yeah, so maybe if someone asks what problem do you solve, well, then you go into the nitty gritty.
Too early.
Yeah, but what they really focus on, like the first month, is like, what's your one sentence pitch, right? Or one sentence description. One-liner, basically, of your company.
So after you get the funding, you actually get some kind of coaching as well.
Yeah,
right?
quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's a very good program.
Was this your favorite, number one pick of any programs in the world, if you could pick again?
Yeah, it's probably the best school you could go to if you can get in. Yeah.
Cool. So you got the funding, you went through the coaching, and you started to build up the company. Then you got some, if you just continue the story a bit more, and you got more funding, etc. But if you just proceed, what were the major steps ahead after that?
The major steps after that, so we started to get more customers during the YC batch, which is for 3 months, and at the end of the YC batch, they have something called Demo Day.
And what is YC batch?
Oh, sorry, Y Combinator batch. So they have
the batch of incubator.
Yeah, exactly.
Teams.
So they have 2 batches every year, and in each batch, I think we were like 150 or something companies. Since Y Combinator, they have had many successful companies from before. Investors really like Y Combinator companies, and they have a good process to find the ones and coach them in a good way. So
everybody's interested in who's coming out of the batch.
Yeah, exactly.
The YC batch is a happening thing in San Francisco.
Yeah, and so after the 3 months, you have this thing called Demo Day, where they invite investors from all over the world, and the best investors, like seed funding investors, are very keen to be there. And this was remote also the first time. The Y Combinator batch was remote, so you had to do it through Zoom, and you had 1 minute to pitch your company.
1 minute. 1 minute. Now we're talking.
For 1,600 people, investors, basically. So
I'm going to do my 1 minute pitch.
Yeah,
Damn it, I need to train.
That's a big pressure to do that. Yeah. Okay, so you did that, and I guess it went well.
It went well.
Yeah. And was it through that specific pitch that you also got the next investors, or?
Yeah. So actually, before Demo Day, we had a company called VC seed stage investor called Initialized. They were founded by Gary Tan and Alexis Ohanian. Alexis Ohanian is one of the founders of Reddit, which is like he's also like married to Serena Williams and stuff. We got in touch with them before Demo Day, since they were quite, and they have like Coinbase, they have Instacart, they were very early in those. We got along well, and actually even before Demo Day, so we raised $2.8 million from that. Majority of the funds we raised came from Initialized, and then I guess other investors also wanted to get involved, and the way the Y Combinator financing is structured is you have a contract which is very easy to get, or it's not that complex, and it's structured in a way that you can have multiple investors in a good way. After that, we got the opportunity to have like EQT, Northzone, the CEO and founder of Voi, Kry, other companies. We got 23 investors in total from that.
23 investors?
Yeah, within a period of like 2-3 weeks.
So it started, but the first investors were San Francisco, Silicon Valley based.
Yeah.
And then with that, when was the point in time you got in the Swedish or Nordic investors, so to speak? When did they pick it up, or did you go for them specifically, or were they there as well?
Yeah, they were there at this Demo Day thing. Yeah.
So they all combined resources together, these 23, and came up with an additional funding on top of Initialized as well. And then today, what's the total tally, so to speak, in terms of how much funding you have? Yeah,
$2.8 million. Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was Initialized only, but okay.
No, so that's some portion of 2.8 is coming from Initialized, and then the other 10 to 3.
And then you had to spend the money, and you had to grow your company and everything. And how many people? How did that process work? You grown and actually stole a number of people from Pantaren as well, I can mention. And then you've grown from 2 people up to how many today?
Now we're 14. we shouldn't use the headcount as like a metric for success, I guess. But we're 14 people, and we are growing quite a lot actually. So,
what is the best metric for success or growing? What you would say?
It depends on what you want, right? But like what's the growth rate of your recurring revenue is a very normal one for SaaS companies.
So SaaS companies typically, like your investors, what are the metrics they're most keen on that you hit the target on?
Growth rate of recurring revenues, and then of course you need to.
How do you define that? Growth rate of recurring revenue concretely.
Yeah. So maybe someone pays you once, and then you're done with it. But it's a quite good business model to maybe like with Spotify, for instance. Then you pay them
subscription.
Once every month or something, and that's a recurring revenue source. And if you can grow that revenue very fast, that's usually a good sign.
Awesome. I'm eager to go into the tech part here, but so you're currently in the situation that you have grown to 14 people and you're now looking for a new office.
Yeah.
And I guess if you were to look ahead like a year, what do you think the next steps would be in terms of scale? And perhaps you can mention a bit about how many companies. I'm not sure if it's secret or not, so feel free to not disclose any information if you don't want to. But
so we work with we work with relatively larger Scandinavian retailers and e-commerce sites. So if you go to our websites, you can see some logos there, and it's quite well-known brands usually. And we have some European ones and so forth. But in 1 year, we want to expand outside the Scandinavian scope to a much further extent. So not just working within Scandinavia.
You're speaking Europe or America or Asia or
it's we will see.
But I have maybe one topic. Maybe we should take it now or not. But I think it's always very interesting to understand the whole headache. Okay, you're starting now. You're 2 people. And then was it always easy to understand what the next guy we need is that we turned that took you to 14? Should I balance? Do I need to get another marketing guy? Do I need to get another coder? Did that come natural for you? Was it always obvious in each step? Or
I think it's never easy. But if you structure it in a way that it's painful to do it in this way that we're doing it, but always start with the problem first, and then
even when recruiting or growing.
So that's how you usually do it in like seed stage. Then optimally you can like predict your growth and everything perfectly. You can predict your problems perfectly, and then you should be able to hire people in advance before the problem arises.
So concretely, so I understand. Okay, we have a huge backlog technology-wise in our feature. That's our main problem right now. Or we need to attract more attention in the marketplace. Now we have a marketing problem. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, so based on a lot of interactions with users, this is a problem that we see. And we go through all the different approaches you can take to solving that problem. If it turns out that headcount or hiring someone who can really spearhead in that effort, if that's the answer, then we hire.
Cool.
Recruitment is a topic in itself, and could speak a bit more. But you've been obviously rather successful, if I may say so myself, in finding good people. So
I agree.
It's a good start, I think. Cool. If you may, I mean, I certainly understand that you have some IP concerns here, intellectual property kind of concerns, so you can't really explain the secrets of what you do. But still, if you think about, another company, they hear about Depict and they want to understand at least, some part of the tech. what really is the difference that your solution offers compared to other solutions, and why shouldn't they simply build a recommendation system themselves? Can you just try to go a bit more technical and say, what is really the differentiator and the USPs, the unique selling points that you have?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier collaborative filtering, which is like what Amazon spearheaded and everything. And if we look at how all existing or most existing e-commerce sites approach their product recommendations today, everyone is basically using the same, I guess you could say, old technology. Everyone is kind of using the same technology, the same principles, and this relatively old technology works great if you're Amazon and you have huge amounts of data. But if you're not Amazon, this old technology doesn't work that well compared to the solutions that are now out there with more modern technology. And this old technology that everyone is using is basically so when you recommend products, you probably recognize it yourself when browsing the web. It's something like people who bought this product also bought that product, or people who watched this product also watched that product. And that's kind of a summary of this in what you in academia call collaborative filtering. And collaborative filtering, or people bought this also bought that, that works great if you maybe have an e-commerce site with a few amounts of products. There's not that much seasonality, and the products have been there for a while, and you have huge amounts of flow of customers and data. That works great. But what happens if you have a product on your e-commerce site? Maybe you're a newly started e-commerce site. You want to become big. You're new to the space. What if you have a product and you use this others also bought approach, and this product has 0 purchases behind it?
So you have a cold start problem there.
Yeah.
You have no data and still you want to recommend something. Yeah.
What if you have 0 purchases behind a product and you try to say people bought this, also bought that? Then it's pretty hard to recommend anything, right? Yeah. And these very weird examples you see by browsing around the web stems from this problem that when looking at people who bought this, also bought that, it's not sufficient amount of data, and it's the wrong kind of data to give the most relevant recommendation for a specific user. What if you're an e-commerce site and maybe you are launching a new product collection? Maybe that's because it's very fashion oriented. There's always new things, or maybe you're just expanding. When you launch a new product, that is when you want your recommendations to be the best. But that's also when your recommendations will be at their worst if you use this people bought this, also bought that, since that's when you have 0 purchases behind it. So when you want your recommendations to be the best, that's when they will be at their worst.
So having small amount of data and a cold start problem is a really big challenge, right?
Yeah, and
so what's the solution then?
Yeah, exactly. And I can list many problems in this. So
okay, continue.
Yeah,
and then the answer is come to Depict.ai.
Yeah. So Black Friday for some e-commerce sites, it's like 80% of their revenue comes from Black Friday. Yeah. Wow. During Black Friday, you have like these insane discounts and everything. Maybe you have a 70% discount at some product, and you drive huge amounts of ads on some products and so forth. And if you use this people bought this, also bought that approach, this others also bought algorithm, we learn that, people buy this product and this product a lot together, hence I do recommend it. And they train on data that comes from during Black Friday. And maybe these recommendations works great during Black Friday, but after Black Friday, when you don't have these huge marketing campaigns, when you don't have a 70% discounted product, then the recommendations will start looking very weird, actually.
So seasonality problem then.
Yeah, yes. And that's an extreme example of the seasonality problem, but there's like autumn, winter, and a bunch of things like that. then there's usually you have your top sellers on e-commerce site, but if you look at where the majority of the volume comes from, it's actually in this long tail. And what these others also bought algorithm does, it becomes very easily biased to recommend the most popular product.
I would actually argue that point, but let me not do that right now. But okay, I can see the point with long tail, but actually I think the collaborative filtering can handle that.
But ultimately, there's a lot of different problems here, and ultimately, are you somewhere here taking a different route fundamentally, going first principles like we love to talk Elon Musk style to decompose the problem and then go somewhere else? So could you elaborate a little bit about how you decompose the problem and how you think different?
So the core of the problem, you don't have enough data. If you want to use this transaction use behavior data, you don't have enough data to solely use these people about this, also about that kind of approach. What you actually need to do is you need to look at something else. And
what is that?
Yeah, and what Depict.ai does is, instead of trying to understand products by just looking at the transactions behind a product, we understand products by looking at them directly, more like a human would do. So in the same way, I would, for instance, go into a physical retail H&M store and ask someone working there for advice. I don't need to pour a bunch of transaction data into that person, and they need to say people bought this, also bought that, for them to give you good recommendations. But by understanding you and primarily being a really good expert in the products in that store, they can give you pretty good recommendations. Even if a product has 0 purchases behind it, they will, like, it's a new product collection or whatever, they will give pretty good recommendations.
It's a little bit like, you're really, I hear what you're saying, then you should look at this, it just came in, it's super cool, I think that will fit you perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And that's obvious, right? And that's, when you look at that analogy, what you're missing here is they actually understand the product to a further extent.
They extend the product, and it's a completely new product, but they understand what the value proposition of this product is, and then they listen to whatever the customer's saying, and then they match it.
Exactly. And what many of these solutions out there are missing is the understanding of the products. And
so what you're speaking about from a more academic point is more content-based systems. Is that correct?
Exactly. And these content-based systems, they've been around for quite some time. But if you would use more content-based systems a few years ago, it would be quite simple methods. It would be like, here you take like bag of words of the text, and you can't really do that much on the images and so forth. Right. Whilst with deep learning, these deep learning models, what they're best at is understanding images and understanding text.
And those two things is the core now.
Yeah, and with that understanding, you can plug a bunch of features into other models to create like similar recommendations, cross-selling complementary products. So like, I have a shirt or a matching pants. Here's an iPhone 12. Here's an iPhone 12 case.
But I think that's a good example. I mean, for one thing, it's about finding similarity, and similarity can be found through the transactional data or through content-based data. But it doesn't really speak about accessories. It doesn't really say that if you buy this TV, you need like a
HDMI cable.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any thought or solutions for that?
Yeah, we have solutions for that, and that's.
What do you call that? Because that is complementary.
Yeah, it's like cross-sell complementary. There's like some cross-sells are very specific. Some cross-sells are more general also, or so maybe I have a dishwashing machine and it broke and I need a specific accessory, and then there's also a dishwashing tablet. Those are different specificity. And there you get into the IP, I guess.
You have this area called also basket analysis, I think, where you try to understand these type of products go together in some way and find that.
And what this transaction data, usually you can find complementary items for transactions, but similarity can actually be hard since what you just see on the transactions is the end result. You don't know the journey to a further extent on how you reach. You can look at like page view journey data, but it's still quite complex by transactions.
So how much is it about understanding the customer journey and the exploration, and how much is it to really have the content-based view of so when someone is buying something or is looking at something, you know, you don't know exactly what the journey has been, but you know that, and now you know content-wise these are similar stuff or complementary stuff. Is it both? Or
yeah, it's both. So if you don't understand the products, then it's pretty hard.
Yes.
Maybe I understand you as a human, but if I don't understand what I'm giving advice on, then it's pretty hard to do anything. So you need to understand the products before doing the personalization part, which is a huge part as well.
So, I mean, if we try to summarize a bit the tech here, and I'd love to move to some other topic here, but there is a number of ways to try to understand, for one, the products, of course, understand, I guess, the transactions, understand, you know, if it's accessories or not, or this kind of complementary kind of products. But is there some aspect also to try to understand the user?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you can just speak about there? How do you understand the user as well?
So you have like a bunch of events from a user. So what kind of products did they watch? What kind of things did they click on? What did they search for specifically on a site? And based on those behaviors, you need to try to understand. So there are some e-commerce sites, like Zalando, for instance, they're exploring, actively asking questions during the journey. So like,
we see you look.
Yeah.
Continue. Take the example.
We see that you're browsing around these things. Do you actually like blue dresses or red dresses? Like actually asking a question.
So making the whole experience more interactive.
So there are some things like that, but now it's always implicit, kind of based on what views, kind of
what they click on.
Yeah, and then what you need to have is a good product understanding to extrapolate on that usually.
Speaking about Zalando, I know they're very much in the forefront here also in a number of ways, and they also try to understand fashion and long-term trends, you know, what will happen in terms of clothes and whatnot. And is that a space you also are looking into, or is that something still?
Yeah, I think that's part of the like meta problem of Zalando. They have huge amounts of data. They have the capacity to hire all these machine learning engineers and so forth. And they see many very clear, cool business use cases when they apply this. So I think we are focusing on providing the best recommendations, but as an end result, at the core, we just need to get better at understanding products deeper and deeper and deeper. And when we understand the products, then making dynamic pricing, doing a bunch of things becomes much easier, since that's usually a missing piece in many of these algorithms today.
So okay, are we done with this part of the tech? I want to understand also, because I think another point is like, how now, I'm a retailer, e-commerce, how does it work when I want to plug in Depict.ai? What's the practicality here?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
So what many e-commerce sites and retailers have problems with is it's such a there are so many things you need to do. So you need to work with logistics, you need to work with like performance marketing, SEO, all of these things. And they maybe haven't been an organization that have focused on building like to hire engineers and so forth. So their developer capacity to get help from engineers and developers is quite low usually. So when we started Depict.ai, we thought, well, we should create our API and we will just sit in our basement or this Scandic hotel.
They will do it for us.
Exactly.
Self-service.
Yeah, and we will just work on our API and then the customers will come. And sadly, it doesn't work that way. So
the customer is not mature enough with the full engineering team to use plug into your API.
Yeah, and it's actually a simple API, but there's so many things they need to do. And if you're coming in as a 17-year-old and saying, hey, I have this algorithm, can you just connect to the API? Then they can say, oh yeah, but let's do it in 3 months. And then there's this COVID comes along and there are other things you need to focus on. So you need to, so what if someone came to you and they said, you just have to spend 5 minutes from your end. And if you spend 5 minutes with me, I have this framework to help you objectively and quantifiably prove that your revenue increases. And there's no risk from your end. You only need to make this 5-minute time investment.
So you worked on your actual sales pitch, like a door salesman, and nailing it down to lower the threshold of the decision.
Or I think but if I was better at sales, maybe this solution wouldn't have come up. But since we were not maybe the best salesmen,
you couldn't talk them down. You needed to take them down.
You needed to engineer a way.
Engineer the sale.
Yeah. So what the customer. So we have created a process to. The only thing an e-commerce site has to do to integrate with Depict is share their account with us through Google Tag Manager. Which is basically as simple as sharing a Google Calendar invite with a colleague. And when you do that, we can, and that takes less than 5 minutes actually. And when you do that, we can actually set up this A/B test. And an A/B test is a way to A/B test, or there are other ways to also do it, where you can basically just have a cohort where 50% of the users get this old recommendation engine, and then 50% get this new recommendation engine. It's still the same UI and everything. It's just different products that's displayed. And then you can measure
scientifically hardcore.
Yeah. And when you do that and they see quite large increases,
this is how you say.
Yeah. And you can also, usually when you go to many websites and just look visually at the recommendations, you see that this doesn't make sense. So what you can also do is you can scrape the website before you meet with an e-commerce site, and you can run it through this. So since another big thing with Depict.ai is if you buy a solution that uses this others also bought logic, then you need to collect a bunch of data over a period of months until it is fully trained, right?
And yours is...
Yeah, exactly. So we can just, in the first sales call, we can visually show them hundreds of examples. We've scraped your site. Here's what you recommend today. You maybe have a share, and then you recommend toilet paper. Like, what is this? And here's what you could recommend with Depict instead. And you show many examples, and then you can say, if you just do this Google Tag Manager, share your account with Google Tag Manager, run an A/B test, then you will get black and white, like what this product actually does.
I like it. Move the whole sales into a more scientific area in some way.
Yeah,
and being able to objectively measure the performance.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly.
I think that's really, really cool. Time is flying away here. I had so many more questions to ask about this, but I think we should start moving a bit more into more philosophical topics. But perhaps, speaking a bit more about Amazon, since that's one part of your sales pitch as well. And, we want to have an alternative to the big tech giants and Amazon,
which we love.
And I think it's so important because, it's a big danger if we don't have a good support for Swedish retailers to be able to cope with the future AI and data-driven, future that we will have in some way. What do you think, the impact of having Amazon moving into Sweden? They did the launch, it didn't go that well. They had a rather, embarrassingly horrible translations and whatnot. That was kind of weird that they do, right? Or what did you think about the Amazon launch to begin with in Sweden?
I think they were dependent on, if they would provide a good service to the customers, they were dependent on other retailers and e-commerce sites in Sweden to connect to Amazon, but not that many connected to Amazon actually. Right. So the logistics and all the products that you actually needed, they weren't there. So like if you go to an e-commerce site, what you actually care about is what they sell.
Right.
And if you only get translated products from the UK or stuff like that, then it's harder to create an e-commerce site from that. But Amazon has all of the prerequisites to, like they have the logistics, they have the logistics can be harder in Sweden since it's like a very long country, but they can solve that better than most, and they have like the infrastructure to take over more of the Swedish e-commerce market for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also the question, I mean, Amazon is different than what you provide because you provide a service for specific retailers instead of building a marketplace they do. Do you think, would you see in the future that, Depict could go to the marketplace arena as well?
Not what we're in. So maybe some e-commerce sites, they kind of operate in a marketplace, but we would like they have other kind of like Blocket or eBay, that kind of setup. That can work if they want to use Depict.ai's recommendation engine. We need to do some fine tunings in how it works, since you have these other problems like what's the quality of the product to start with. If someone uploads something to Blocket, it could also be a scam. How do you know it's a scam? But for now we're not focusing on marketplaces.
That sounds good. I recognize, some from the Spotify days as well. We didn't, take on record labels. We instead, were a complement to them, and they still take that approach, and it's been successful. So I think it could be a good idea. I'd like to move into the whole education question, unless you have other. We have not that much time.
I think education and or the path for young people to take. I mean, like education is one big topic, but it's also the alternative ways. So
let me try to make a segue from Amazon into the question of education and how people and companies simply have the best potential to work well. Amazon, spend huge amount of money on research. Unfortunately, they don't publish that much. They don't do much open sourcing, but they still spend a huge amount of money on R&D. And, it's the most valuable company in the world. So obviously they do something right. And then the question becomes a bit, what is the best way for a person that want to, have the highest impact in some way? As you said it already in the beginning for yourself, you thought the normal type of educational system we have in Sweden doesn't really work for you that well, at least. And you think you can have a higher impact by taking a different route in some way. But other people, like myself, do the stupid route of doing a PhD and everything, which, is probably a complete waste of time. But still, what is your thinking about the educational system that, for example, we have in Sweden? And
so I haven't, I haven't experienced the whole university and then graduate and all of that to some extent. So people who went through that, they say that they get a lot of value that's maybe outside of the education also. They meet a bunch of people that create very good relationships, and many things make sense there. So what I think about the Swedish education system in the parts I participated in, I think that if you have outside, if you have very intense interests, and maybe someone has an intense interest in mathematics, and they have this interest and they want to maybe go beyond what's is average, the curriculum, then it's I got the sense, or where I attended school, I got the sense that was discouraged to do that.
Because you was just uncomfortable to deal with that.
Yeah, so that's discouraged. And if it's the reverse, then there are better systems to handle. But if it's something where you really want to dive deep within, then that's discouraged. It's much better to be very broad and be kind of okay in a bunch of subjects, but
Could I make a perhaps controversial statement here, saying we need a Depict.ai for educational systems? What I mean with that is, it's really hard to, for one, make recommendations that is not personalized. If you make, the same recommendations to everyone, or the same education for everyone, it will not work well. But the more personalized and flexible and adaptable you can be, probably it will be more effective. Would you agree?
And then there are side effects of you want to have equal opportunity and a bunch of stuff like that. And I guess if you fiddle with those, if you get equally well personalized education to everyone, I guess you solve that.
Equally good personalized. Isn't that a contradiction in terms in some way?
So maybe
fair personalization.
So if everyone gets their personalized education curriculum, I assume you create this process or algorithm to personalize it. Maybe for someone who's interested in math, the personalization algorithm, it performs much better. Whilst if you want to personalize more in the you want to do liberal arts or something, and this algorithm performs worse, then you get societal effects out of that.
So the algorithm needs to consider both the societal aspect and the personalized aspects, you would say? Or?
Yeah, but if it's unequally, if it performs unequally well among the population, then
So it's an interesting one. So your idea of personalized education is still very, very tricky, because how can you still have it fair, equal opportunity? Because if you do personalized and there is not an equal opportunity anymore, because what you are really want to be passionate about, the algorithm is bad at that particular point.
Yeah, I would still argue for a more data-driven education system would be awesome to have.
But how would you if you take your mind? I mean, you have a brilliant, fantastic mind, Oliver, and how to find the burning problem and to work on that. So if you would to identify the real burning problem that you want to innovate in the education system, how would you frame that? Have you thought about it? Because I think it's something there.
I've thought about it, but I don't know if I have solutions, actually.
Just come up with the problem. What is the problem? If that is a burning problem worth innovating.
So I have one data point, which is me.
Yeah.
Anecdotal data, that's awesome.
Yeah, one data point. I love when tech guys talk.
I guess you should allow interests to flourish in a better way. And have systems for that. And I think some countries do this quite well. Yeah. Denmark has better systems for it. Singapore has better systems. US, I think, has better systems somewhere for it. Let's stuff. Yeah.
But I think what you said now nails it. I'm thinking, or I've been reading and thinking in the same ways. So it basically challenges what is the fundamental goal of the educational system. And if we are coming from a place where, going back to the 1900s, where we were supposed to have a certain amount of data put into our heads, a certain vocabulary, a certain number of kings we should know, wars we should know, whatever, right? So then your goal is basically we should all give them a baseline knowledge. So the goal is some sort of knowledge, right? But what if you flip the goal and it's basically to to nurture talent or to nurture interest or flourish interest or basically nurture motivation to learn. So I'm not here to teach you this. I'm here to teach you how to learn. I'm here to motivate you for lifelong learning. Then the metric is completely different, and I guess the methodologies of how you facilitate, how do I teach people to learn? I mean, like, it would be very different. So I think what you're highlighting here is a little bit like flourishing in what people are doing, pinpointing the ikigai, like the core purpose and all that.
Okay, so education, we need to improve it in some ways. I think it certainly doesn't fit everyone. It didn't fit you that well, fit other people perhaps better. But then if we move into the question of recruitment as well, and you want to build your company, you want to have the best type of skills in your company. Can you share perhaps some of your thinking about, how do you find a good recruit, a good candidate that could join Depict.ai? What do you look for?
This will depend on like what stage of company you are, and it will also depend on what problem you're solving. But for Depict.ai, we have some problems that no one really has looked into before, and you need to be quite smart and innovative around those problems. So instead of maybe looking at, okay, did you finish this degree or something, focus more on what track record do you have of solving really hard problems, or like what track record of
So people should be able to give some examples of projects they have done in the past, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like usually something that works pretty well is if this makes the recruiting a little bit biased, but if they started coding, for instance, much earlier than university, then they have like a innate interest for this. It's not they do this for a vocation. It's more that they really like this, and usually when you ask them about the projects they've had, they usually have some very specific projects, and they are usually extremely good at those things. But I think it also starts with having a very good vision, a very like interesting problem, and a
vision for the company, you mean, or vision for the person?
Company, and like if the company, if you have the right prerequisites for the company, then it's of course much easier to
find good people. So basically, if you can find people that have a strong passion for tech, or for what, or what's the passion you're looking for?
The passion I'm looking for, it depends on the role, but they're passionate about the company and the vision when you explain it to them. They like if right now, if they have a track record of, well, I did this thing before and it's, you think, wow, I wouldn't do that myself. I think that this person would help me in ways that I couldn't, we couldn't do right now. That's a very good sign.
So people that can complement you and other people in the team.
Do you have any traits or any things you're looking for that is going across any role? So I mean, like coders, yes, marketing guys, sales guys, but is it something that is like, this is something that is more to culture, or what type of company, or do you have anything like that you're looking for?
So I would say they all have like a big drive to build something great. They like have this ambition. They for Depict.ai specifically, like everyone is like, we call it egoless mindset, which is that if we're maybe talking about a specific problem or something, everyone is humble, and when you're talking about the problem, you're talking about the problem. It's not, this is your idea, this is mine idea, I'm hurting you if you do this specific thing. You go into a very academic and data-driven way, so you reason, like talking more, that kind of.
And how do you identify those characteristics? What, do you ask you some specific questions, or what are you looking for to pick out on these core values that you really believe in?
I think the way we conducted our recruiting process, it's we are quite high touch with the people we've recruited so far. At this stage, like the company is just the set of people you have, so we've spent quite a lot of time together with them.
Time together, and then you figure that out.
Yeah, so if you talk to, maybe if it's an interview, maybe you're just getting the people that are the best at interviewing. But if you spend some time together with them and maybe do some test working and so forth.
So your process is actually geared towards high touch, or
right now,
working them. Makes a hell of a lot of sense to me.
But it can't work. It doesn't scale too long.
Okay, awesome. And since we only have like 5 minutes left, but if we think a bit more long term and perhaps the future of AI and these more philosophical questions and singularity and things like this. But let's start with this. I'm not sure how much in touch you are with the recent state-of-the-art type of AI, but do you have some kind of favorite AI models that you recently read about, or something you're fascinated about?
So OpenAI's the latest one, DALL-E and Clip. And the fun thing is this Clip model. We like the way they train this model is very tied to like utilizing the web in a good way. I think they basically, what they did is they found a bunch of images on the web and they found a bunch of text on the web. And how did they find this text? Well, they didn't specify that clearly exactly, but a large part of it, I think, comes from actually these attributes that you can get from blind and vision impaired. So like alt texts and so forth. There's,
I think, image descriptions and things like that as well.
There was this paper called Wilbert or something. That was way before Clip. And they used a data set from Google called conceptual captions, which is just they scraped the whole internet kind of. And since the web is so large, they could have very strict thresholds they utilized blind and web accessibility standards to create this text to image mapping and to create this huge data set. So I like the concept of using the web in that way. And then if you look at the example, so this DALL-E model, I think they have this famous example where it says like, give me an avocado share, and it can automatically generate an image of an avocado share. And then there's this Clip model where they achieve state of the art and a bunch of things with very little training examples, which is pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool.
I mean, I think sometimes we call this in Batar at least for operational AI, where you can actually use AI even if you don't have annotated data. And I think in your case, you're speaking about companies that don't have perhaps a huge amount of annotated data, but they still want to understand the product. And you want to understand the text and the product description, and you want to understand the product from an image point of view. And obviously Clip. I think Clip actually is more interesting than DALL-E if I were to choose, because it really demonstrates what you can do if you use data without having explicit annotations. And I think that's
but we can plug. I think Rise is having a webinar on the Clip model in a couple of days.
I think it was today.
Or was it today?
Shortly.
Magnus said, I saw it. So it's out there.
Yeah, we even have a Swedish version of Clip actually, partly. So it's kind of really amazing stuff.
So it's something you are thinking about how to integrate to, or think about?
Yeah, we've integrated it. Yeah,
you're into the Clip model already.
Yeah.
Cool.
So already productionized, or still in beta kind of production or prototype phase? Or?
So we've taken concepts of it and productionized. Yeah.
No IP problem here. No one is listening. It's okay. You can talk about this.
So here with people at R&D, and then these guys having concepts of it in production.
I mean, it's like Luciano speaking about the transformer for logistics. No, but I think it makes perfect sense. So I'm very glad to hear that you're for one on top of these kind of things. It really demonstrates that you have a lot of knowledge in what's happening in AI and what the right direction for the future, I would say.
Some people are doing it. Just do it.
Yes, that's awesome.
Love it, Oliver.
Thank you.
So very briefly, since we don't have that much time, but okay, so imagine like 5-10 years ahead, and imagine what Elon Musk or Ray Kurzweil or other people are saying about potentially we'll have a point in the future in a number of years where we lose control of AI and that will develop itself and we can't really control it anymore. Is that something you have been thinking about or concerned about, worried about?
So Anton, one of the co-founders for Depict.ai, we kind of bonded and met each other through this question and this book called Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom.
Yes.
And I think it's probably like if you think as someone who is very into logic and so forth, if you come from that perspective, I think you can reason that it can probably be the biggest problem that we might be facing. Since, like, where were we 400 years ago? Where were we 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago as a society? Maybe we don't have to care that much about, will it happen in 10 years or 50 years? Like, probably something will happen if we don't kill ourselves for other ways. Probably something will happen in maybe 300 years. If you extrapolate on this, and
that's your number.
Like maybe it happens in 10 years, but let's be conservative. Like I would say it doesn't matter when it happens, since the impact will be just so enormous.
But do you think it's necessarily bad then? Or could it actually be a positive change in our society?
I think that's a hard part, right? So it depends on what kind of incentives you give this.
What KPI did you put on the model?
Yeah, exactly. And if you have the wrong KPI, it can be bad. If you have the right KPI, it can be very good.
I have a theory that I tried to explain a number of times before, but I don't think I really succeeded that well. But in some way, it's basically phrased like, the more intelligent you become, the more civilized the society become, the more friendly the world becomes, the less the law of the jungle rules and decides on what you do. So if you simply assume by that analogy that if something becomes more intelligent than the normal average human, it could be expected that it actually becomes more civilized.
Yeah,
it becomes more friendly, and it becomes something that helps us be more happy as humans.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense, but it's hard to know, and I wouldn't bet the potential impact of this. What if we achieve this AGI or superintelligence on the assumption that, it's fine, it will figure it out by itself?
I mean, I think, as we said, the danger is really before we reach that point. The danger is when we have narrow AI potentially and we have autonomous weapons and we have something that crashed the stock market or something, and it's very, very far from having the type of general intelligence that we want it to have.
So I think that the more deeper or more people who've been deeper into AI we've had here, it seems like these conversations we're actually more scared of narrow intelligence gone rogue before we are scared of general intelligence. So like even the finance market going bananas.
How about the quote we heard last time? I think I'd like to welcome our overlords in some way, and I think that's actually
Who was it?
Second to last one.
I can't remember.
I like that phrase. I think it could be nice society that we have. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, but I think the likelihood that we have a quite big impact, I mean, maybe this is the biggest impact we're talking about now, but to have a really substantial impact, that if we are now looking for the bad impacts, the bad risks, narrow AI gone rogue. That could happen. The finance system goes bananas.
Awesome. Oliver, let's end up with perhaps just a few questions like what's next in your life? Personally, professionally, what's happening in the coming months?
The coming months. So, for Depict.ai, we need to get a new office. We need to...
we talked about that.
We need to... We're hiring a lot.
Yes.
What are
you looking for?
If you go to our website, you can find all of those things. And hiring, find a new office. Probably number one thing is just hiring.
We haven't talked. Obviously you're a passionate coder. What is happening outside the world of code?
What is happening outside the world of code? So I'm not coding that much on a day-to-day basis recently.
Oh, but okay, outside of your profession then, when you switch the Depict.ai off.
So I'm very interested in Depict.ai.
Yeah, obviously.
But I meditate a lot actually.
Ooh,
and
I do as well. It's nice to hear.
And
we should have brought that topic up.
Yeah, we should have asked this question earlier. We need to start doing that more. We get so nerdy on only the business side of persons, and we miss some beautiful topics like meditation.
Just a quick question. Can you just describe, how do you meditate?
How do I meditate? Yeah, so there are, I actually use 2 meditation techniques, and the first 30 minutes, I do this daily, and the first 30 minutes, you focus first on your breath, and then when you get acquainted with that, you focus on the sounds, and then bodily sensations, and then the visual field, and then you can actually open your eyes, and it becomes pretty...
you do this sitting down in some yoga mode, or is more laying down, or what's...
Yeah, sitting down. And then...
How did you learn this? Did you get a teacher, or did you read up, self-studied, or...?
Yeah, self-studied. There's... pretty famous podcaster Sam Harris.
Sam Harris?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
do you use this app as well?
Yeah.
I track my meditation. So
which app is Sam Harris app?
Waking Up, and it's probably it has the best stickiness for me, since you track the amount of consecutive days you meditated in a row, right?
Gamification.
Yeah, you
meditation.
can't beat that streak. You can't stop that streak after a while, right?
Awesome.
And maybe a personal question, but what brought you into meditation?
So, my parents, they are pretty good at this, and they incorporated that very early.
When did you start meditating?
So first they were very much encouraging me to do it, and then when your parents push it to you, then you're less receptive.
Yes.
But when they push back, then you actually become more receptive. But I think the first seeds come from them pushing when I was very, very young.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Interesting. Awesome. And final question. Oliver, do you have any people you would like to hear on this podcast? Anyone that you would like to listen to yourself, perhaps?
Many people. So it's in Sweden, or...
Yeah, we have to come to the office or the dungeon.
So someone that can join the studio, we like this experience to have that would be. So
I should have prepared this, but I know that there's this company called Sana Labs that maybe you want to invite them. There's Joel there. There is thinking of e-commerce sites. So yeah, sorry, I should have prepared.
Okay, so ignoring Swedish people, just thinking international. Then I guess like Sam Harris or someone would be interesting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
Someone like that, then just hypothetically.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think if you would ask this question, like if you go to the space of AI and the academic way of thinking, I guess many people would say Sam Harris, many people would say Elon Musk, many people would say maybe Max Tegmark, he's a Swedish one.
Max is famous.
Nick Bostrom. There's one guy in Oxford that works a lot with Nick Bostrom, who's done cool things, but I don't remember his name. But
really good suggestions, though.
Yeah.
I love it. Oliver, it's been a true pleasure. As usual, we come
Inspiring
up
as hell. Inspiring as hell.
Come up with the awesome questions in the end, and wish we had more time to dig deeper into them. But I think it's been really interesting to hear about your journey, and it's so interesting that you at this young age been able to succeed in that extreme way that you have. And wish you the very best, in your future journey as well.
Thank you, and it's very nice being here and talking like this. Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, a lot.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.